Hi, Kitty here from bashfulcat.com. I thought I should do a quick face-to-face update because it's been so long since I did a video. The problem is I keep recording this over and over and over trying to get it right, and I'm so much better at putting my thoughts on paper than I am in front of a camera. But that shouldn't be too surprising. I've always been bashful. So I am going to put some more thoughts on my blog if you're curious to know how I feel and how I got here and what I'm doing. But for now, before I start today's card tutorial, I just wanted to say that I am more passionate than ever about card making, completely obsessed, and believe that this is what I was born to do. And what I lack in talent, I think I make up for in passion because I love making cards and I want to share that with everyone. So, I have made the decision to become a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. I am now not only making cards with these wonderful new tools and products, but I am selling them, and someday I hope to work with other demonstrators, other people who love this hobby as much as I do, and perhaps we can share ideas and inspiration with each other. But right now I'm just trying to figure out my way around all this new product and stuff. So today's card is very simple and basic, but I have to start somewhere. So first I want to say thank you to everyone who's watched my videos. I can't believe I have any kind of following at all because I don't have any clue what I'm doing. Second, while today's technique may not be anything earth-shattering, perhaps I can motivate you to do what I did, only better. And if nothing else, maybe there'll be enough screw-ups to laugh at. So thank you for watching, and don't be afraid to get in touch with me. I really am trying to break out of my shell and be a people person, as crazy as that sounds. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again. So for today's card, I started with some Peekaboo Peach cardstock and made a standard A2 size card base there. And then I cut out some plain white cardstock and cut it just a little bit smaller than my card base. I'm going to set aside the card base for now and work on my little background piece. I'm starting with the watercolor wash background stamp, and I'm going to create sort of an ombre effect with a few different colors of ink. I've played around with a couple different varieties, and here I'm starting with the Daffodil Delight, my lightest color in yellow, and then I'm moving on to Peekaboo Peach ink, and then I will move to Calypso Coral ink, and then last but not least I'm going to use some Tangerine Tango, and that will be my darkest color. Anyway, I played around with a couple different ways to figure out how I could best get an ombre effect, and I actually found that the best method seems to be with the little sponges cut into wedges. And I just been using one sponge per color family, and it seems to be working very well for me. You can have one for each separate ink pad if you want, but I've got one for yellows, one for oranges, etc., and it seems to work fine. So I'm going to start with yellow, and I'm just going to pounce some color with the sponge onto one part of the stamp. I'm going to speed it up here now because it takes a little while to get all the colors just how I like them. So after yellow, I went on to my lightest orange color, the Peekaboo Peach, and then into Calypso Coral, and finally into Tangerine Tango. Once I had all the colors on there, I kind of gave it a little huff so that I could make sure that it was still wet enough to make an impression. But it actually works pretty well and is probably not absolutely necessary. Here I'm grabbing a piece of scratch paper so that I can rub the stamp down or the impression really well without getting ink everywhere, or at least that's the goal, but I usually end up with ink everywhere anyway. So now we flip it over and the big reveal. Ooh, we have a nice little ombre background, but I thought it needed a little something to spark it up and give it a little more interest. So I'm going to pull out what I call my messy box. It's just an old cardboard shipping box that I put some tape on so it would be easy to find. Otherwise there's boxes, so many boxes in here. So anyway, I use this box whenever I want to do sort of a messy technique and I don't want to get ink or glue or whatever all over the place. So I'm going to set it in my box. This is kind of awkward at the moment because I'm trying to set this up so that you can see what I'm doing. Normally I'm just more focused on making sure I don't get everything everywhere. So I'm going to start with some Daffodil Delight, my lightest color, and I'm just stamping it onto an acrylic block. This is what I call my messy block. It's sort of an old block that I use for messy techniques like this. Anyway, that's just a plain old regular paintbrush, and I dipped it in a little bit of water and just kind of swirled it around to loosen up the ink a bit, and all I'm doing is flicking it onto the paper. And this is one of those things that you'll want to play around with a little bit to figure out how much, how far away to hold the acrylic block. It'll make a difference in the size of the splotches that you get. You can go from pretty big to really, really tiny depending on how you hold the block and what kind of brush you use and all that. But it's fun to experiment. This is just a really fun technique. There are also some wonderful texture stamps that Stampin' Up! Sells that do a beautiful job. But this is super easy and cheap if you just want to add some color and don't want to have to pull out any fancy stamps or anything. It's just plain fun to make a mess. So now I've got my background piece here with all of the ink on it and some splotches for interest. And now I'm going to cut out some die cuts so that we can add a design to our card. So I'm going to pull out some thinlits here, and I'm starting with the Swirly Scribbles thinlits. And one of these days I'll have to do a new video about how I'm now storing all my stuff. But basically, I really like Stampin' Up's sleeves. They're nice, heavy-duty plastic. All I've done is add a magnet inside so that the dies don't run around loose everywhere. So I picked out two of the circles here, and I'm going to cut them out of some Daffodil Delight paper. And then I'm going to pull out the Sunshine Wishes Thinlits set and just grab the word sunshine, and we will cut that out of the Daffodil Delight as well. So I've got all my thinlits ready, and I'm just going to go off camera for a moment to my Big Shot and cut these out. Okay, so I have all my little die cuts here, and on the yellow ones I wanted to make them just sparkle a little, so I pulled out my Wink of Stella pen, and you can't tell, but I've already actually coated all of these in Wink of Stella. Try as I might, I cannot get the camera to pick it up, so you'll just have to take my word for it. These are nice and sparkly and glimmery. So I decided I wanted to use these round pieces to create sort of a sun shape on the upper corner of my card, so I'm just kind of figuring out where I want to lie them. And I'm going to use my fine tip glue pen here to adhere them. This pen works really well for delicate die cuts, but you just want to use it very sparingly, just little itty bitty dots. I'm hardly pressing on that bottle at all, because otherwise it can get all over the place. So I'm going to adhere this. I use my tweezers to kind of just help me balance it out. And I'm going to put it in the upper corner there, but I decided I wanted it to hang off a little bit. It adds interest sometimes when your design hangs off the edge. I am going to end up cutting the excess off there. So now I'm going with the smaller piece, and I'm going to also cover it with a little bit of glue and put it in the upper corner centered inside that circle. So this gives me sort of a sun. What I really should have done at this point is found an acrylic block or something fairly heavy and set it on top to let it dry. That does help it to all dry flat, and I realized this later, but I cut out an additional sunshine word, this time out of Tangerine Tango. I decided the yellow was just a little hard to read, and so this way I'm going to give it a shadow, and it's going to make it bounce off the page a little more. So I'm hearing that orange Tangerine Tango sunshine word first, and here's where I realize I should have that acrylic block. I'm going to let that dry, and then I will put the yellow version over it, and I'm going to apply the yellow version just slightly to the right and a little lower so that you can see the orange peek through as sort of a shadow. So I'm adding some more glue here, and we'll go ahead and line that up, and that will be part of my sentiment. But instead of just the word sunshine, I am going to add a little hello, because I want this to be hello sunshine. I figured this is a nice sunny, happy, summery type card, and we're getting close to summer and there's nothing better than sunshine, so which is why I now live in the Sunshine State. Don't forget the little dots on your eyes, and I did save both of those, and I put it on in the Tangerine Tango and the Daffodil Delight. So that finishes the sunshine word. Now I'm going to take out some precision scissors and cut off the edge. I thought about just erasing this from the tape, but you're going to see that after I cut this off, some of it didn't adhere real well to the card. And that's because it's hard to tell on something like this just where exactly you want to put those little drops of glue. But it was very easy to fix. All I had to do was go in where I could see it was kind of loose and just add a little glue underneath it, and it worked perfectly. So this was a super easy fix. I just thought I'd show you that you know, mistakes happen, and some of them are very easy to fix. So I added glue and adhered that down, and now I have the basic design of my card. But it needs one more step, so I'm going to pull out my Sunshine Sayings stamp set, and I just want the little tiny hello word, and that way I can have it say hello sunshine. So I pulled out some Tangerine Tango ink. I'm just getting an acrylic block here so I have something to stamp it with. I love my little case for those blocks, by the way. It was just something I picked up at Dollar Tree, and it works perfectly. So, and now we'll get out my ink. And I'm trying to show you there the inks that I used, but I think I'm moving a little too fast for that. And of course you also get to see my little struggle as I'm still slightly Stampin' Up! Ink pad challenged, but I'm getting better. And at this point I don't think my hands were totally covered with ink, so this was a successful card. So I'm going to go ahead and line up that little hello where I wanted it. It's a tad bit crooked, and I ended up doing something to fix that later. That's one of the problems with doing a card on camera. I tend to be not as precise. When I do this on my own, I'm really meticulous, but I'm also really slow. Anyway, I'm pulling out my little Stampin' Up! Trimmer. This thing is awesome for really, really thin strips, and I decided the card needed a little something, so I'm just going to add some little tiny paper strips to it. So I'm just lining up some, I believe this was the Peekaboo Peach paper, and I'm going to cut a strip out of that, and then I'll cut a couple strips out of the Tangerine Tango paper so that I have just a little accent. This is one of my favorite things to do on cards. It's so easy and cheap. You don't have to have any other fancy embellishments, but it definitely adds something. While this was definitely not my favorite card ever, it did come out okay, and I know that each time I make a card with these products, they're going to get better. But I am so long overdue for a video that I figured I better just start here and do something. So I'll put my trimmer away and get up my snail glue, and we're going to go ahead and adhere those strips to the edge of the card. And one of the things that you learn early on when you're playing with card making or any kind of art work really is that
the number 3 just seems to be very pleasing to the eye. So whatever I do, I almost always do it in threes. And so in this case, I'm going to have 3 strips of paper, 2 very thin Tangerine Tango strips, and 1 thicker Peekaboo Peach. I'm just going to put some snail glue or snail adhesive on this one piece and adhere it where I want on the card, and then I'll just cut off the excess when I'm done. The orange pieces were really thin, and I could have used the fine tip glue pen or any kind of adhesive really, but since the snail glue was right in front of me, I just went ahead and put the 2 strips together, which makes them almost as wide as the snail adhesive. And the great thing about any kind of these tape adhesives, most of them come off really easily if there's like extra hanging over. You can just rub it off with your finger if there's any extra, and it works great. So there isn't like glue all over the place. So I put these 2 strips on either side of the peach strip, and that gives me a nice little finish on that side of the card, and then I just cut off the excess. Okay, at this point I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video because it was just the little finishing touches and this video is running kind of long. I did end up adding 2 more little hellos and 3 pearls in order to make it look a little more interesting. Not the world's best card, but hopefully it gave you something to work with and perhaps you can expand on it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day!